Oh, y'all got a microphone, all right. Whoa! Don't run like a big ass all right, hold up. I ain't hear a damn thing. All I know is Sam is black and Emil is red and I smell subs.
I smell subs.
That's Coil by Sam. That's a new
Coil by Sam? That's that new fragrance?
No,
okay. Oh, cologne.
That's that minor cologne.
All right, Emil red, Sam black. Celine, what we got?
Red 2-1.
Red 2-1. Red 2-1. So that is. What's up, y'all? Rob Cole here, man, and we taking a different approach today. So most of y'all, from what I started a channel as, and I try not to pigeonhole myself too much as far as the type of content, because that's the whole reason it's called Auto World, is because it's all aspects of it. And one of them that I am huge on, that I don't really press a lot on the channel, absolutely has got to be music. Has to be music. So it's a long story as far as the whole thing that I'm involved with, as far as the whole sound competitions go, but I've been doing it for a very long time. And in saying that, there's definitely a couple people that's asked if I'm ever going to do any car audio related videos. I've had them, one, maybe two. I want to say one, and that's actually the one that's playing right now behind me. This was more of an introduction as far as what I do, but that was just like a small snippet. But the thing is, a lot of guys are wondering like, okay, what do you have in yours? So for y'all that don't know, we're going to talk about the Kodiak.
That trapping in London for sure.
Let that money talk to me. 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 Luxury, my fashion, keep them pretty bitches on the beaches. I don't play my shit, y'all ride my way, y'all boys are signs of me. Let that money talk to me. Let that money talk.
The Kodiak is a 1996 Chevy C1500. And something that's pretty important, especially when you're talking about space and real estate in the vehicle, it's an extended cab. And I do not have a back seat in it. So that actually makes a difference for me. So bear with me, I'm at the house now. I kinda waited until all the kids were at school, except one, the one that's a little too young to go to school. And I definitely got dogs in my face. So bear with me. This video is gonna be like extra raw. I was trying not to take too much time and overthink it and how to put it together and everything else. I'd rather just do it and get it out there. Obviously, I'm going to put some effort in for it, but it's not going to be what you guys are used to, because this is way before I even started thinking about doing YouTube heavy at all. But for whatever reason, it was just something that I did where it comes to taking photos, videos, and even just sending them to my friends just to show them what I'm up to. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all those things and pretty much go from beginning to end of the Kodiak, that is, because there definitely is builds prior to this in my other vehicles, which I still have, but we'll get to that later. So once again, we're bouncing back and forth, and that's going to be between the pictures and the actual video footage that I do have of the process starting off. No, it is not high dollar. I have always been on the budget until I was able to afford a little bit nicer things. But the thing is, the competition is pretty serious. So if you want to have any type of edge, you gotta have the science behind it. And that's one thing that I got a lot of. Most bang for buck and a lot of science behind it. And I won quite a few times. Not all the time, but a few times. But all right, man, let's get into it and just, start from the beginning. So here it is, my 96 Chevy C1500 that I call the Kodiak. And I'm not trying to do way too much with this thing, man, but it is what it is. I had two other vehicles go down. This was literally my only car, and I was out of the scene for so long, or at least for me, that I had to get back into some capacity to at least try to touch each thing that I do. So of course, I'm a car audio guy. Been one for God knows how long, even though it started off with the muscle and the motors, but then I kind of deviated a bit. Anyway, thing is, I'm obviously not out here living to go buy a whole brand new vehicle and then have a project on the side. This is literally my everything in one. I drive this thing every day to work. I've driven it to Virginia, Delaware, all kinds of places. And on top of that, I'm still stressing it out, making hits on the road, making hits on the street, hits at the track. Obviously, you see the slicks and everything else in here, but I try to make sure that even though I still want to touch the music on a competitive level, I have to make sure that my truck is still functional. Same thing goes when it comes to, you know, doing the suspension mods and everything else as far as racing and going faster. So when I did my music install, I had to make sure that I still maintained a certain level of usability of my pickup truck. I've loaded up all kinds of things from over 1,000 pounds in rock. I've loaded up all kinds of junk from out of families' houses, friends' houses. This thing absolutely gets use. And also, me being on a low buck, I had to make sure that I was able to get the most out of it for what I was willing to spend at the time. Vocals, they're well hidden. When this thing turns on, you have no clue where the rest of the speakers are, but you'll see that in a bit. Then as far as the bass, that's obvious, box right behind the driver's seat. It's not going to be anything sitting back directly behind me anyway. Any other stores that I have next to the box, more than enough for what I need. And of course, I didn't intend to go as far as I did with the music, even though to me it's still mild, but I ended up going pretty far. So a system's only going to be as good as the foundation that you actually set it on, how good the bones are. So for starters, I'm starting off with this, and yes, that price is so far gone these days. I wish it was that price. But yeah, loaded up on some birch wood, some birch pine from Lowe's, I think I went to. Got that all loaded up because I already had done pre-measurements to see how wide of a floor I needed in the back. I needed to see as far as what I was going to do for the back wall for support. And I also had to measure for the box that I was building. All of this stuff was pre-done, but I had to go in, rip out all the carpeting, get all that stuff out of the way, and just look at what kind of metal I had under. The back wall, that had to get wiped down, acetoned, and get ready. And then I had to move on to that floor. And that floor was some next level crap, man. So first things first, when tackling this floor, man, I absolutely had to lay eyes on the situation to figure it out, and then also get rid of this rust. Now, this is just a foundational thing to just help with the ride, period, when it comes to putting down the sound deadening, which is great even if you're not doing car audio, because then you'd have a choir, almost like a quality ride, it feels like. All of the rattling and crap, you don't even hear it after a certain point, or as much when you sound deaden your vehicle. So vacuumed all of the stuff out, and then had to get me a wire wheel and get the grinding to get all of that rust and those big flakes off and expose that metal, so that way I can actually figure out how to treat this thing. I've been using Eastwood rust encapsulator for a long time, and that's exactly what I used on this one. Laid the Eastwood over top of it, so that way I can let it cure, and then eventually start laying down the deadener. But before we lay down that deadener, the one thing that I need to do is figure out where I'm going to run this wire. So one thing that I didn't do here, which I learned my lesson in the future, it's not hard to just buy a hole saw, let's just say a 2-inch hole saw, drill out the 2-inch hole, it's enough for multiple runs, and then literally just go and buy a 2-inch hole grommet off of Amazon. They're cheap, not expensive at all. But that's what I should have done with this one, but here's kind of how it went down. So one of the things I did right after I cleared the floor off, I decided to lay the deadener. So this deadener is good stuff, man. You're going to see a short clip that I had took that I was actually using to show RBT built this sundown deadener. And yeah, it's quality stuff, man. And of course it does cost a little more now. But yeah, got it all laid out on the floor, then went and laid it out all along the back wall, the sides, even inside the quarter panels. Didn't do the roof yet. That's definitely on the menu at some point, but just wanted to get the floor done so I don't have to take it up ever again. You might be wondering why this back wall has the pieces exposed in the middle, but that's because I need them to be as flat and as clean as possible for what I'm going to use them for soon. All right, here it is. This the how it came. I just cut the box open. They packed it up pretty good. Looked like I guess that's like probably an invoice. Then this looks like it's down for sound sticker probably. Yes, it is. I guess whatever that is. I got a dum-dum, cool beans. That's cute. But yeah, here it is. This is how it come wrapped up. And this package is the 36 square foot one. It was $165. And so far, let's see, once I can get one of these sheets off, I'm gonna get a better idea of what it's gonna be. Yeah, all right, so pretty much it's kind of like I figured it would be. This reminds me of the, what's that called? The stuff that I was going to get, the ballistic mat, made by Metro. But it's solid stuff, pretty much what I thought it was going to be. It's thick enough, definitely to do the job. It has a nice layer to it of the tin, and like as you bend it, it does kind of like hold form. It's not just like super floppy, but it's good stuff. This will definitely do the job for sure. All right. Well, a lot of work went down in this one. It was real tedious trying to get the deadener. And if y'all was wondering, like, oh, why do they put in strips? Pretty much where the strips is at is where the metal recesses. So all of the exposed areas you see is the ones that stick out. So those actually, if you put a board across, it would lay flat across all those exposed areas, which is exactly what I want. So to make the deadener spread, this deadener is from, this is Sundown's deadener. I believe they released this like, I want to say like a year ago, because they have a couple different types. This one was released a year ago. The inside of the quarter, I stuck it all back there and everything, so those is all good. But I'll save deadener and add a whole lot of rigidity instead of the same way people use wood and like you know, cut it, kerf it, and put it on the roof. I'm gonna do the same thing here, but I don't have to kerf. I just literally already did the measurements, and I'm gonna just lay the piece all the way across and PL the crap out of it, and it's gonna stay. And that right there should make it really solid. Ooh, excuse me. So kind of mapping it out. The 15 is going to be over on that side. Oh shit, excuse me. The 15 is going to be over on that side, but that's after the back wall is mounted and the false floor is made, so that way the lithium can go under the false floor. So once everything is done, it'll kind of, and everything start to come together, false floor, box, wall, it'll make sense. So all right, that's it so far. So getting back to that clip where you saw the back wall, where it was some deadener in between, but there was still regular raw metal there, we're going to start off there. So there, I needed that surface to be clean because when you use PL on clean sheet metal, wood sticks with PL to sheet metal like there is no tomorrow. It is a big thing that is used for guys that, you know, once again, they use the wood and kerf it to their roof, or just any panels in general. It really adds super rigidity to whatever surface you put it to. Plus, pickup truck back walls, when it comes to base, those things are known to move like there is no tomorrow. And of course, when you have all of that movement, you're losing sound. That is all sound that actually could be coming out of the vehicle that's lost. The energy is pretty much lost in motion. You got some guys that'll throw tennis balls in between the bed and the back wall, but I was like, you know what? I want this to be like rock solid. And even after this, in the future, I actually went back and double layered it because the single layer wasn't enough. So here's where I started to map out the false floor. And with the false floor, I wanted to make sure that it was symmetrical to the back wall. So the false floor is pretty much the same width as the back wall. Then on top of having the same width, I didn't want it to be too deep or so deep that it would interfere with either the center console that I planned on putting in the future or reclining the seats back too far, or should I say actually sliding the seat back too far. I didn't want it to interfere with any of that. Then after that was done and I actually cut this board that you see here, I actually sat it down first on the nubs that actually hold the back seat in place, because there are nubs that actually stick out from the sides of the body on both sides. That is what's holding the board up at first on each side. Then from there it was a little tedious, but I had to make the stilts that actually went from the board itself down to the floor. And because the floor has all kinds of dips and craters because of how the floor pan was made, each individual stilt was its own length. None of them were the same. The closest to being the same were the ones on the ends, but once I figured that out, got those glued on, dropped some screws in there, then it was good to go. So after I had that made up, it was all done. It was pretty much the final product. I just needed to top it off by making it look presentable and actually carpeting this thing. Once I carpeted it, it seemed like things was definitely starting to actually come together for sure. And the cool part was now, not even with just this single board, but even when I went back again to add another layer to it, the factory carpet goes right back over it and it's flush with the top trim right below the back window. So you can't even tell when you look at my truck that it is reinforced and double layered with birch wood on the back wall. You have no clue. And trust me, it works. So next we're going to dive into the electrical system, and having your electrical foundation will make the rest of your equipment, amplifiers, speakers shine. So the wire you guys see me using, this is actually triple-aught all copper welding cable. And this stuff is serious. I've been using it for a while. It sucks because the price of it has definitely hiked up just like everything else, but it is what it is. So the battery that I went with was lithium, and these cells here are the XMaxx cells, which some people call Honda Insight cells. It all depends on what vehicle it came in, but they're actually just Panasonic cells.
Hey, Tiny! I could not address her. Gangsters put that heat to your hand like a hairdresser. If you press an issue on their block.
Hey, Logic. Snake here. I hear you're planning world domination through a new form of Metal Gear. Well, listen to me. It won't work.
This liquor that I'm drinking got me thinking about some other shit. Feeling like I'm thinking like...
So what y'all just saw, that was just me sitting and saying, you know what, I'm gonna order some pizza, grab a couple beers, and sit down and start to figure out putting this thing together. Now I had some help from a guy named Zen. Zen is absolutely a godsend. He's given me all the information that I need. Not gonna get too deep into how to assemble these things, but once you get the hang of it, as long as you got the time, it's really not bad. So I've built a lot of these batteries for friends and whatnot, and then maybe a friend of a friend, they paid me to build batteries. So I've built like 95 amp hours, 135 amp hours, but in my case, we have the 45 amp hour. That's the one that I went with in my truck, and it's compact and definitely packs more than enough power to get the job done for all of the wattage that I have. So it wasn't just space that had me make this decision, it's also money. This stuff, I mean, doing it yourself can be cheaper, but either way, no matter how you slice it, the stuff costs money, man. So this 45, I actually got lucky because the guy named Kyle, another godsend. Man's done a lot for me. He actually had me build him a bigger battery, and for payment, he bought me 45 amp hour worth of cells. That literally paid for this battery. All I had to do was just pay for the compression kit, the bus bars, and just pay for the balancer. So I already had a spot in mind under the false floor where this thing was going to go, and it tucks away just right. And then I actually revisited this later and made my false floor a little bit higher, but that's another story you guys will see later. But from years ago till now, this is still the home spot for the same 45 amp hour, working fantastic. So now to move on to the head of the charging system, and that is going to be the alternators. So 2 brands that I have lived by has always been Meckman, and after that has been Brand X. So these are 2 Brand X 250 amp hour ground pounders. Now the difference is you can get a 400 amp hour, you can get a 370 Elite Meckman like I used to have. Issue when it comes to those bigger ones is that when it comes to the actual idle amperage, it's not as much. So the idle amperage of these ground pounders, these will give you about 200 amps at idle instead of about 160, and then giving you the higher amperage of a 370 when you're up at like 1200 RPM. Did I need 2 of these with this setup? Probably not, but I kind of just felt like doing it at the time. And once again, I was just doing everything on payment plans using Klarna, Affirm, all kinds of stuff. So these particular type of lithium cells like to be around 15 plus volts. And now what I got these alternators set at is 15.5, and they're internally regulated at 15.5. So that is the resting voltage of my charge system. So next up, we're getting into the equipment, and this was definitely also kind of guided by the budget. Grab this sub and try to get one that was absolutely going to take abuse and give me output. I didn't want to get like a 500 watt or 1000 watt RMS sub, which the 1000 watt ones aren't so bad, but I wanted to get something that I could hit hard. So I grabbed the American Bass XMaxx, and this thing is heavy. I think it's probably one of the heaviest subs I owned, unless it's not as heavy as my DD99s, I'm not sure. But then after I got this, started measuring out, looking at the false floor, how far over to the side I wanted it to come, and then that's when I started to actually make the design. Always designed my boxes, built my boxes from top to bottom, and same thing here. So even though this sub did a great job for me, and I definitely don't regret it, I ended up having to go with another setup. It took the power from the first amplifier I got a Skar audio off of somebody, once again used on a budget, and the setup worked. But then that's when I finally got my hands on my Vital Powers. Now both of these Vital Powers are actually for the Free World bourbon, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to use one of them while I can, just to give it more power. That's where I ran into my problem. The 15 that I had could not take the 7K, and honestly, I don't blame it. It's 7K. So that's when me, with my mental illness, decided I'm going to grab 2 12s, and I'm going to try to hit those. So then I grabbed the Skar audios, and I believe these are the ZFXs or ZF. I don't even get me wrong. It's the top Skar, but the copper coil. These things took me very far, got me noticed in a whole different way. And same thing with these, made my own design. And this was the first time in a while that I did a slot port, because I always did arrow ports because the output on those, you can't beat it. But with a solid slot port, this thing was doing damage and super musical. And it's a lot of people that will rag on Skar audio, but man, these subs took the damage. Very underrated. And plus on top of that, you got to consider it's all in the design of your box, how much power you're putting to it, and how clean the power is. That is key. And with my lithium providing more than enough power, not a problem. So now we're going to move on to the door panels, and this is where I want to say the simplest magic happens. People have no clue what's in it, and they swear I'm hiding like 10s or something behind a door. Not the case at all. So one thing I do, I am a big planner for the future. So anytime that I run wires indoors, if I'm going to go through the trouble of running it through the boot, I'm absolutely going to put more wires in case I add something for the future. So I put 4 sets of wires going into the door and a couple of feet under the side panel, so that way I can attach something in the future if I wanted to. So for starters, all I did was go in, take off the panel, go to the factory 6.5 location from the factory, and just trim that hole out just so we can accommodate a 8 instead of a 6.5. Then that's when I went to the air vents and the doors and figured, I can deal without these. Mocked up where the speaker would be with the 8-inch ring. I recommend buying the pre-made audio pipe ones because it's so much easier. But anyway, use that to map out where I had to cut a hole, and that's exactly where the other 8 went. Didn't have to worry about any mesh because there's already a vent hole in the factory panel, and voila. And now with the 8s that I got the mid-range and the mid-bass out the way, here's the tweeters. These are some flush mount tweeters. They come in all different brands, same style. All I did was Dremel out the factory hole location, put one there, use a hole saw in the pockets just to put a couple there, and the fact that they're flush mount, it definitely looks clean. Then I got freaky in the future, added a horn, and added a panel to hide it all, so it looked that much cleaner. Definitely happy with the finished product and how it came out. Now, as far as other equipment, gotta have a crossover when it comes to trying to have sound quality to be able to separate those frequencies. Then as far as amplifiers go, nothing too complicated. To ramps, they're a solid amp to go with, especially if you're just getting into Brazilian. They had their issues in the past, but they have definitely come a long way. And on a budget, these things kick ass. So this is just kind of like a rewind on looking at where the amplifiers are up under the false floor. And there's plenty of space for them, and now it's a whole different animal. There's actually more up under there, but it's still all tucked in the same compartment. So now we're getting that much closer to the end, man. I definitely kind of skimmed over a few things, but here's one that I did do also, is I did do a battery delete up front. Got rid of the AGM that was up front, the wet cell, whatever it was, and just put a dummy box. That way it didn't slow down my lithium. I'm going to do some pretty acrylic stuff like I did in the free world, but I'll get to that later. Got too many other parts to install on this thing. The finished product is looking good, y'all. It's looking good, man. I mean, this is obviously on a super clean day after I did it, but it's nice being able to hop into something like this and drive and either go quick and mash the gas or turn up and have some music and still just cruise on a day-to-day.
All these I got so many odds. I'm a person, easy depression. When it comes to the drawing the fresh, I'm a seller, them bags of depression. Pull up my young nigga, holiday dumps. Burning my scatty, this shit right sponsor. Can't stand a bitch when I'm following strokes. Leg on the 72, they the stroke. I pull up the sets and I'm burning on wedding cake. Shot with the circle, but we moving hella weight. I cannot fall off, I just gotta elevate. Control all the keys, we just hit the straight. I'm stronger right there from an African diamond man. Weighing no bell when I'm wet to my tab. I got this shit free compliments over plastic. Took out the plug cause I felt like a tax. My out of town white when he coming by ass. My bitch out of Cali be loving my ass. I'm a no walking and mail off a pack.
Alright, it's a wrap, y'all. Super random, but shout out to Tiger Stripes and Peaches, man. Cats that build boxes with me. Always kept me company and was there even through the late nights, man. Yes, I still have live cats and dogs, but coming through the pictures and I found these, man, had to shout them out. But appreciate the support. If you watched all the way through by some miracle, that's amazing, and I definitely appreciate it, y'all. More content to come. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.